My Lords, can I firstly warmly welcome the statement from the Minister in the other place that this dreadful surrender bill is being paused pending further discussions with the United States. My amendment of a few weeks ago that the noble lady at the time described as wrecking, of course, called for exactly that. So it's great that the government now seem to be in the same place. Does the noble lady agree that had the government followed the logical sequence of agreeing their new treaty and then amendments to the 1966 treaty with the US before progressing with this bill, then they would not be in this embarrassing position today? On the subject of pauses, can I ask the noble lady to pause the no-fault eviction of the group of Chagosians who returned to take up residence on one of the outer Chagos Islands? Throughout the passage of the bill, the noble lady on many occasions rightly expressed her sadness and her shame at the way a previous Labour government had evicted the Chagosians from their homes. We will now, of course, see just how sincere she was in those comments by whether this current Labour government carries out another forceful eviction of British citizens from a British territory. And finally, does the noble lady agree that the current international crisis and the possible use of Diego Garcia for military strikes against Iran demonstrates the absolutely vital strategic importance of the base and why we should retain it under British sovereignty and under UK control?
My Lords, the people who have found their way to some of the outer islands should not be there. It is not safe for them to be there. They do not have permission to be there. It is not legal for anybody to visit those islands without a permit. They do not have such a permit and they should leave immediately. It is deeply irresponsible that they are encouraging others to join them, and there is a risk to life in doing so. I hope that they leave of their own accord safely but promptly. The noble lord is right that this base is of vital strategic importance. It is an expression of our incredibly close security and defence relationship with the United States, which is why we've gone to such lengths to secure the future of the base.
Note the fact that Conservative MPs Nigel Farage and Tommy Robinson, all who proclaim to love their country, actively undermine it when they're in the State Department and the White House. It is, however, necessary now, given the statement of President Trump, for us to be presented with what would be a binding decision of the United States with our key ally with regards to the use of the military base. But if there is a pause, then will the Minister agree that this is an opportunity to put a statutory right for the Chagosian community with regards to resettlement, for there to be active participation of the Chagosian community on decisions that affect them, and for there to be greater clarity on the value for money of our taxpayers if there is to be a treaty, long-term treaty, and for there to be greater role of this Parliament in holding any government to account over the lifetime of that treaty?
I think it's very important that we lay out clearly the costings and the value for money points are answered, and I'm happy that the government has committed to doing that and will continue to. On the participation of Chagosians, I mean, we have discussed this at great length in the past and for very good reason. And I think we are able to find ways, together with Mauritius, to make sure that Chagosians are properly represented and are able to exert the influence that they, within the treaty, around the trust fund, around their ability to resettle in the future and who's entitled to do that, and all of these issues. And I think it's probably a good idea for us to continue those conversations to make sure that that is done as well as it possibly can. On the stability of the US position, I take the point. We had secured very clear and firm support for the deal from Secretary Rubio, from President Trump. We continue to have close, intense conversations with our dearest allies and partners about the consistency of this decision in order that we may be able to move forward with this treaty, which, as I've said, secures our ability to operate together with the United States from Diego Garcia.
Very point, but the Minister said on 12 occasions, and I got a list of them, that the treaty can only go ahead with US support. Well, the US President said last week that this is a blight on our great ally and that the UK should not give up Diego Garcia. The following day, the President's senior press officer, Caroline Levitt, was asked by the BBC whether the President's statement was now official policy, and she said it certainly was official policy. So can the Minister tell the House what is her plan B?
Well, our plan is to proceed, as I've said, which is to speak with our friend, allies, partner, close friend in Washington to establish a stable position here, because it is true, and I have said repeatedly, and it's good to know he's been listening and counting so assiduously, that this is all about securing the base for the United Kingdom and the United States to operate together.
Would the noble lady, the Minister, agree that the imperative about what happens to the base is the national security of this, our country, not only for those of us sitting here in our generation, but in the generations to come in the next 100 years or so? And would she agree that noises off can be distracting and misleading, and that at the end of the day, we have to make up our own minds?
Well, we do need to make up our own minds, and we have done so, but I don't think it's realistic to proceed in a way that doesn't involve the support of our allies in the United States who pay for and pay for the base and the operating of the base, and that we work with so closely. But he is right about noises off, and sometimes you do have to wonder about the motivation of some of those conducting themselves in that way.
Think that the international courts...
Given what the noble Baroness, the Minister, has just said, and I quote, about our dearest friends and allies, would the single most sensible gesture not now be to our dearest friends and ally to put this pause onto permanent hold?
Well, the noble lady will forgive me for not wanting to disclose in this forum the very detailed nature of the conversations that we're having with the United States, but I think it's not for any of us here to tell each other what the best thing to do for the United States would be. It is up to them to talk to us privately at this stage about how it is that we should be proceeding to secure the base.
Why does the government think that the international courts can make us give Diego Garcia away to Mauritius when there are very clear defence opt-outs from their jurisdictions in the relevant treaties?
Well, I mean, it's good to see the noble lord here in his place. He hasn't been part of the discussions we've had up to now. If he had been, I think he might have found some useful exchanges across this chamber on that very topic. I mean, I am genuinely fascinated we think there is a legal basis for the decisions we've made, and although Lords opposite may disagree with that, there is at least consistency in our position. I'm genuinely fascinated about what the previous government thought it was doing, negotiating around a dozen times, if, as it maintains now, it thought that there was no legal jeopardy around the future of the base.
No. We'll hear from Baroness Foster next.
I did say the last time we debated this issue, as the noble lady probably remembers, that there were consequences to ignoring the voices and indeed the rights of self-determination of the Chagosian people. We now found ourselves in a situation where they've taken matters into their own hands and have gone to the archipelago. Surely it is now long past the time when we need to kill this treaty.
I mean, I do respect the noble lady's steadfast support for the Chagosian communities, but as she will know, there isn't one single view among Chagosian community or Chagosian groups, and there are several which support this new agreement. It is not good that people have found their way to this remote island, which is not suitable for habitation. They are putting their own lives at risk, and I think, more importantly, encouraging others to put their lives at risk too, and they should leave promptly.
May I just correct the Minister?
It's the good.
My Lords, on the 5th of January, when debating the Diego Garcia bill, I asked the noble lady, the Minister, this question: is there any legally binding agreement between the UK and the United States that is, United States, will continue its use of the base or have need of its use for the 99 years duration of the treaty. The noble lady didn't answer then. Perhaps she could answer now, because it seems the UK should be aware and assured that the United States is committed for the whole length of the treaty, the 100 years.
It is very important that we have an agreement with the United States about the continued use of this space, because it matters so much to our security. The United States feel the same about it. There is no difference between the United Kingdom and the United States about the need to continue to have that base and to operate it together. We are in complete agreement on that. Where we are having to talk to them now is about the nature of that agreement and about these issues around sovereignty. We will do that, and we will get these issues resolved so that we can move forward.
Wow. What an absolute, unmitigated humiliation for the Labour government. You can literally hear the panic in the minister's voice as she tries to defend the indefensible. First off, let's talk about the geopolitical reality check Labour just received. As the Conservative peer brilliantly pointed out, this is a dreadful surrender bill. Labour was fully prepared to hand over one of the most critical military assets on the planet to Mauritius, a country cozying up to China, just to score some cheap, post-colonial brownie points. But then reality hit them like a freight train. President Trump stepped in, with his administration calling this deal a blight on our great ally. And now, Labour is scrambling. When asked directly by a peer, what is her plan B, the minister basically mumbled about having more conversations with Washington. They don't have a plan B. It's like jumping out of an airplane without a parachute and just hoping you can negotiate with gravity on the way down. It's totally clueless. But the absolute worst part of this entire exchange is Labour's staggering hypocrisy regarding the Chagosian people themselves. Labour politicians have spent years crying crocodile tears over the historic injustices faced by the Chagosians. Yet the very second a group of these indigenous people actually return to their homeland, what does this Labour minister say? She coldly declares they should not be there, and that they should leave immediately. Are you kidding me? A lord masterfully called this out, questioning if this current government is going to carry out another forceful eviction of British citizens from a British territory. It just proves that Labour only cares about human rights when it fits their woke narrative. The minute the indigenous people get in the way of their disastrous treaty, Labour tells them to get out. The solution here is painfully obvious. As one peer perfectly suggested, the single most sensible gesture right now is to put this pause onto permanent hold. Kill the treaty. Toss it in the shredder. Diego Garcia is essential for global security, and handing it away is national sabotage. What do you guys think? Will Labour actually scrap this surrender bill, or will they try to sneak it through later? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed this breakdown.